Welcome to the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Chris Arnold. Very excited that you guys are with us. If you're tuning in, you are catching the end of a three-part series that we have put together. The title of that series is How Has a Remote Real Estate Team Survived Together for Almost a Decade? We're talking specifically about our team, my team. I know that one of the biggest compliments that I always get from people is, Chris, you have such an amazing team. Where did you get those people? Can I steal them away from you? I do get that quite a bit, which I obviously say, no, you cannot. But go ahead and please try. But we are very, very loyal to each other. And if you're tuning in, we're talking about team building. As we said in the previous series, that teams, not individuals, change the world. And even though you're a solopreneur at this point, at some point, you're going to add on at least 1 to 2 team members. Maybe you don't want to scale it up, but you will be leading a team at some point. And number 2, if you have a high level of turnover, that is going to really slow down the growth of your organization. So rather than, getting in and executing on new projects and making things happen, you're going to be so busy trying to replace seats because it's a revolving door in your organization. And we see that quite a bit. Number 3 is freedom. If the entire business is built on you, you're wearing every hat in the organization, and your goal was to get in for freedom, I will probably challenge you that you will not get that freedom. The only freedom that will ever come is if you have the ability to leverage through a team, because that's what a team does. It allows people to pop in and pop out because each other has each other's back and can fulfill each of the roles that each other has. That's why, for the most part, a lot of people in our organization are cross-trained. And of course, lastly, in my opinion, there's just a joy in doing the journey together. If you were going to climb Mount Everest, it'd be cool to do it by yourself, but I don't know about you. Once I summited, it would be much nicer to put some hands around some shoulders and give some high fives and some hugs and some tears because you did it as a group. And I really do value that idea of camaraderie and journeying somewhere together as a team. And so that's why we are talking about the importance of team. But the reality is most teams don't stay together for very long. And so what I did was I sat down, who I have on today, Krista, and Sierra and Grace and Scarlett, who we've worked together for almost a decade. They are leaders in my organization. They are directors. They have played in a lot of different roles and have really been with me as we have, at this point, are now on our 5th company. So we've done different industries and different types of business, but the one thing that has stayed steady and maintained the same was the fact that we actually stood together. We didn't kill each other. We actually made it. And actually, more importantly, I know there's some days where I don't even imagine what my life would be like without my team. They're such a big part of my life. I talk to them every day, all day long, if you can imagine that. So there's a lot of closeness that's created. And I always like to throw it out there because it always makes heads turns. And even though we've been together as long as we've had, believe it or not, I've never met Krista, Sierra, Grace, or Scarlett face to face. But we trust each other with our lives. And I think that shows you the power of technology. And more importantly, that you don't have to be face to face to have a great culture. So we're going to end this series with really kind of 3 more things that we felt like have helped us as a team navigate this process and stay together. Definitely go back and listen to the ones that we left before. I will not recap those all this time, but you can check us as we come out on each Wednesday for the previous 2. So let's hop into the meat. Again, these are not mine. I sat down with Krista, Sierra, Grace, and Scarlett, and I said, how in the world have we made it? And I actually let them as team members answer these questions. These were not my answers to the question because for an audience, I wanted you to hear from the team, their perspective on what keeps a team together. Again, we as visionaries, we have opinions on why things are the way they are. And a lot of times what I've realized is our team is a lot smarter and knows a lot more than what's going on than we do, because most of the time we have our head in the cloud anyway. So let's hop into the first one. And what they told me is one of the things that has kept us together is the fact that we have learned to customize the roles for the talent within our organization. We actually never come in and try to change the person. What we do is we try to change the position to fit that person. And is I think as common sense as that sounds, I don't think that happens the majority of the time. I think people are constantly being stuffed into positions because they need to be fulfilled, not because that's the way in which they are wired and what they're most passionate and gifted to do. So I'm going to kick this over to Grace and Sierra. Again, we wanted to back all of this with a story. And we wanted to use Grace as an example because Grace has been through a lot of roles. But the one thing that has stayed consistent is who she is. And it's taken time for us to really carve out that perfect position. But after all these years working together, she's doing exactly what she's been gifted to do. So Sierra, Grace, I'll kick that over to you. I don't know which of you want to start, but I'm going to kind of volley it up to both of you guys.
It doesn't really matter. I don't mind jumping in there. So sort of like what Chris mentioned, that does sound like obvious to fit, your talent into what's best for them, like what their most gifted is. But more often than not, more people are like pushed into a role just to fulfill it. And thankfully, with our culture, that's not the actual case. So I started here as, what would you say, like a prospecting assistant, tapping into, I always like talking to people and I like helping people. But prospecting assistant probably was still limiting everything that I could do. Like it was tapping into like one element of, my talent. And then
when you say prospecting assistant, Grace, just so the audience understands, you are kind of on the front lines pre-qualifying the incoming calls, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Any call that we had coming in, I was talking to the person, pre-qualifying them, and then tossing it up or teeing it up for our acquisition managers. So in one way, it was great getting to know the company in that way. And I think that that's what clicked with, or at least my interest in the marketing is how often I would hear certain feedback from callers. And I was able to run that, to Sierra and like my other team members going, hey, here's what I'm hearing on the phone. But again, processing assistant was kind of tapping into one of my talents. I jumped into lead management, which I think we all slowly learned, spreadsheets and admin tasks.
So lead management, again, for someone that's newer, that is actually defined as getting in and kind of managing the actual database, right? Like the leads that were coming in, making sure they were being followed up on. So like you were literally in a database managing all of the incoming seller leads, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was a very much so a database role, a lot of administrative tasks of searching the system, cleaning up the system, running reports, which is extremely necessary. You do need that, if all your leads are coming into that CRM, like someone does need to track that all of the sources and all of the phone numbers are working properly, and that the leads are being tagged appropriately, if they're a new lead or someone did touch base with them at least once, where they are actually falling, just so that the entire team is aware of what stage of the funnel that this particular person is going through. So yes, that was one of my roles as well.
And then where'd you go from there? Because it didn't stop. This is interesting because you have kept evolving and evolving. You're not a lead manager anymore. What happened after that?
Yeah, so then I finally actually started to be able to branch into the marketing side. And first, it was sort of getting to understand like our direct mail process before I actually bridged over into radio and then grew and took over into marketing overall, which is a little bit more of my wheelhouse. I like to be able to, touch base and help people, but I also love researching. So it allowed the nerd in me to actually just stop and learn and then be able to tinker, as I call it. I would not describe my role as marketing. I would really say it's more like the tinkering director of researching, toying, and playing and tracking with things like that. Before ultimately actually growing into my wholesaling Inc. role under REI Radio, with actually coaching and helping our radio students get and set up their radio processes. So
let me break that down though. I want to make sure people caught that. So You started off as a calling assistant, pre-qualifying inbound seller leads for acquisition managers. You moved into a lead manager role in which you were managing the database and the CRM. Then you became the director of marketing, being responsible for tinkering with all of our marketing, really finding new ways to market, really running that entire department. And now you are fundamentally in a role in which you are coaching and helping students all across the country. By the way, Grace has helped 45 out of 50 states at this point. Students set up their radio, so that's a lot. So that is a long swing. So I want to kick this over to Sierra. Sierra, you're the COO. Your primary responsibility is to make sure that the right people are on the bus, the wrong people are off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. As Grace tells that story, what do you kind of take away as a COO on the fact that that was a path to really get her down to what she does best, to as I've heard it says, to be able to do only what Grace can do, that she does so superior to anyone else. Talk a little bit about that.
Grace is just like such an interesting person, first of all. Like she just has this personality that she really can do anything. You know, you can put Grace in any role, she can do it. But there's a difference between doing it and being the one that should do it and that the only one that can do it. And I think for a long time, we were just kind of trying to see, like, we put Grace in a position and of course she did well, you know, because she has it in her personality. But was she fulfilled? No. Was it hitting all of the talent points that we needed to hit? No. And that's what happened with Grace. Is when she came in initially, we quickly realized that Grace loves talking to people. She is like a chameleon. She can change her personality so much. She can go from just like, you know, if she has a student that is more on the monotone side or very much to themselves, she kind of tweaks her personality to be able to speak with them and communicate them in that way. And then the same, you have somebody that's more loud and outspoken. Grace can just completely shift herself. So we knew that on the prospecting side, she had a gift of speaking with people. Like her communication is great. She just can connect so well. And then even on the, but there's this missing piece over there on the prospecting side. There's this creativity that Grace didn't get to touch. She didn't get to tap into that creative side, which if you know Grace, you know that she's two things extremely. She is a very good communicator and she's a very creative person. So we needed a position that was going to tap into both of those things. And so for lead management, we found out that she didn't thrive in that position because it wasn't talking to people. It wasn't being creative. It was much more like administrative tasks. She doesn't enjoy that. And honestly, it takes a very specific personality to enjoy that. And so when we moved her into marketing, we saw the creativity. We saw her get excited and passionate and like just mind blowing to me how she thinks. It's awesome to watch her connect dots. And then ultimately, like she said, we put her in this assistant coaching role, basically is what I call it, on the REI radio side, which allowed her to do those two things she does so well on a daily basis. She communicates with the students and she gets to be creative and help them problem solve and maximize their money and their marketing. And so it's really, to me, it is the perfect position for Grace. She gets to use all of her talents. And I don't think I've had one student come across that wasn't just like blown away with Grace. She gets compliments on every call, you know, because she just has such a unique personality. And it really was finding a place to utilize her that was going to get us or have the ability to maximize her talents. We could have just kept her in those roles. But honestly, we have benefited so much more. And I think Grace has benefited so much more with us finding a place that was really, really going to speak to her talents. And I think that's what we did. And she's amazing. Just throwing that out there. She's really incredible.
So, and I absolutely agree. Grace is super talented. So what I want you to hear, if you're listening to this podcast, is the extent to what our organization goes through to make sure that somebody is put in that absolute perfect position that's going to draw out all of their strengths, that's going to give them fulfillment and it's going to give them excitement. I think a lot of times most people are just thrown into a role and they're left there. And they probably don't feel like they have a voice to express maybe that they're unhappy in that role, or you have leadership that doesn't really come in and identify and go, hey, I know that you're good at that, but we know that good is the enemy of great. And there's something that we feel like that you could be even doing at a higher level. So one of the reasons I think that our team functions at the level that it does is because rather than coming in, as I said in the beginning, and trying to change the person, we're constantly evolving the position until we get that person in the seat doing only what they can do, what they love to do. Krista's a great example of that. I think Krista's probably one of the most diverse people in our organization. I call her like a rover. That's an old baseball term back in the day where you would have someone that would literally, wherever the ball on the field went, that's where they would go. They didn't play any particular position. They just went where the ball was hit. And Krista's a lot like that. And she's been probably one of the people that's been more trickier because she's able to do so many different things. But over time, we've been able to hone into a few things that she does that we really needed, like things like compliance, which we're all so bad at, but she's so really, really good at. So I hope that you guys hear and take away from the fact of the extent at which we go through. And one of the ways we do that is we also utilize a lot of psychological assessments, things like intermetrics and strength finders, a lot of those tools out there that reveal a lot about how a person is wired, because we believe it's our responsibility to make sure that we're maximizing what that person can do within the organization. So, this is one of the things that, Krista and Sierra and Grace and Scarlett are saying has been such a key thing to keep everyone here so long, because a lot of times people will quit. They quit because they end up doing something that they don't enjoy showing up every day to do. But if you're in a position that's like perfectly carved out for you and you love it, well, that makes your job very different. As they say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I really believe that to be true. So let's go on to the second one. This one's a lot of fun, because we're going to give an example of really how well our team knows each other. And the second one is really a deep understanding of how each of our team members function. And I said, hey, what is a great way to illustrate this? And I said, well, I'm just going to call on a few people and I'm going to let the other ones talk about when that person thinks best and when you want to call them on the phone and what's the best time to have a conversation and when are they most likely to bring the best ideas. So let's start with Scarlett. Talk a little bit about Scarlett. What do you guys know about how well she functions and when it's best to work with Scarlett?
Scarlett is a perfectionist. That's the way I like to explain Scarlett. She is the person that you go to when you need things done perfect. When they need to be done right and you need somebody to really analyze something, Scarlett's girl. Like, no matter what, she's going to be able to pull it apart, and she sees it in just such a unique way. She has many, many talents, but the best, I think, for our team is just her ability to see things completely different. She can just pull things out that you might have been staring at the same thing for an hour and you're not getting there. And I'll call Scarlett and immediately she sees things in just a completely different way. She's really able to analyze things. And I think that's one of her best skills.
Go ahead.
I was going to actually also say that aside from being a perfectionist, it's great to catch Scarlett in the morning. If you ever need a project done in the morning, Scarlett's definitely a go-to. But I would also say I always envied Scarlett's ability to how she simplifies things and unbiasedly will give you an opinion on something. Like if I'm ever looking at a project and I think I might be emotionally invested or looking at it only with my set of eyes, I know you can honestly go to Scarlett and she'll look at something and look at it objectively and simplify it to its very base force and go, no, this is the thing and this is probably how you need to approach it or how you maybe need to be looking at it, because she'll do it unbiasedly, which is really great when you're dealing with someone like me who depending on the day, my emotions can carry my thought process. It's nice to have a team member who's balanced that way, balanced in thought as well.
Sierra, when is it best to call Grace?
Grace at night. You don't call Grace before like 12 if you can help it. She's not there yet. It really takes her time to get those juices flowing and to want to communicate. It's not that she can't. It's just, we know if we're going to get the most out of Grace, it's going to be in the afternoon. Me and Grace have the best conversations at like 8 o'clock at night. For some reason, that's just when our brains connect perfectly. I can leave her alone all day, but I know I'm going to call her at 8 and we're going to get problems knocked out. We're going to get problem solved.
What about Krista? What do you guys know about her and the way that she functions?
Ooh, Krista's an early bird.
Yes, she's the one person I can get when I'm awake.
Yes.
Yeah, Krista is definitely the morning person here. You want Krista to get things done. She's going to get it done at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to be, totally blown away when you wake up and roll out of bed at like 7. She's already been working for like 4 hours. She's already done. So she's pretty much
there's been times
on top of it.
I get up in the morning and Krista's still up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always laugh. There's times where I'm up and I think I'm the only one that's awake. And then I get a text from Krista and I'm like, it's early. And then I have to remind myself, yeah, it's even earlier for her because she's on Pacific time. She's 2 hours behind where I'm at. How in the world is she already awake, like texting and thinking as well? If I were to put language to what we're talking about, I would call it the ologies. I think that you should get a degree in each person within your organization. And so what you're hearing is we have a degree in Christology, and we have a degree in Graceology and Scarletology. It means that we understand the quirkiness about each other and when's the best time to share ideas and what each person does uniquely, whether they're more emotionally driven or they're more driven by reason, or if you want somebody to simplify, or in Sierra's case, if you just want someone to be a soundboard because you've had a really tough day and you just need to vent it out. And so I think that because we have such a deep understanding of how each of us function and taken the time to go to that level, that's one of the reasons that we've been able to stay together for as long as we have. I'm going to equate it to a lot like marriage. How well you understand your spouse and all those idiosyncrasies and the way in which they function really determine the longevity of a marriage. I think the same is true with the team that works together as well. So let's go to this last one, which is freedom. I love the phrase that performance buys freedom. I also remember Steve Jobs saying that, talented people, they don't need to be managed. They just need a common vision. And once they know what to do, they'll go figure out how to do it. You just got to get out of their way. And I've always really held to that overall leadership style that talented people will figure it out. You just got to give them a common vision and point them in the right direction. And I know within our organization, as you guys said, one of the things that's kept us together is that the overall leadership style is you've got freedom to walk away. You've got freedom to choose. You've got pretty much freedom to work when you want to work, how you want to work, in whatever way that you want to work. We really don't care as long as you get done whatever responsibility it is that you've committed to do. So, Scarlett, I know you have really kind of a story here to represent that. You want to share a little bit about your story when it comes to kind of the freedom in our organization that you feel like has held us together?
Sure. So the past few years, I felt like there's always just something crazy going on in my life. Since working for the team, I've had health issues, death in the family. My husband's deployed. It's been one thing after another. But a few years ago, my brother passed away unexpectedly. I was the one that got the initial call and had to call my family. And right after I called my family, Sierra was my next call. I was bawling my eyes out, telling her what happened. I was, truly just surprised she even understood anything I said, to be honest. She let me get everything out that I needed to get out. And then she was just like, take all the time you need. She never once asked me how long I thought I was going to be out, what needed to be done. There was never any of that. She'd call and check on me and stuff like that. And I got calls from other people, but everything got taken care of the entire time I was out. I don't even know who did what, but it gave me the time and the freedom that I needed to, to really just grieve and plan the funeral and take care of my family. I'm not generally one that's really good with taking time off. It sometimes has to be forced, but I would pipe in randomly and just to kind of distract myself, and Sierra would push me back out, be like, nope, you need to take some time. I just really wasn't there yet. But, with the team that we have, I never worried. I never had to worry that something wasn't going to get done, that I was going to lose my job for needing to take this time off. It really gave me what I needed to focus on my family at that time. And, that's been kind of the way we've all been. We can take that time that we need and know that the rest of the team has our backs. Stuff's going to keep moving. And, when we get back, it's not a mess to come back to. It definitely makes you feel a lot better when stuff comes up.
Yeah. You said something there, and I think, and I don't know if anyone picked it up, but it's something that I've observed about our team. It's really interesting that when something personally goes wrong in one of our lives, usually one of the first calls that we make is actually to somebody on the team. Krista, I know when you had something pop up, just a few weeks ago, that was a pretty big tragedy. One of the first calls you made was to Sierra, right? And Sierra was up with you, and you were, I think, late into the night, right? Just talking about trying to figure out how you were going to navigate this and so forth. And I think you guys were up till just super late, and she was just sitting on the phone with you, right?
We were texting from the emergency room. But yes.
Yeah. I just think that a great telltale sign, and I didn't pick it up until you said it, and I haven't thought much about it. But I think that you can really dictate the closeness by the team of, when you start making those calls, when tragedy happens, how far down on the list are your team members? Is that like the last call you make? Oh yeah, by the way, I got to let the people in my organization know that this happened. Or is it one of the first calls that you make because you know that these people are important to your life and are going to step in and do whatever it takes to help you out regardless of the situation? So wrapping up our series, we wanted to come in. It's not saying that we have the perfect team. Every team, obviously, just like family, has its own dysfunctions. But one thing I do feel like we've done really well is we've navigated almost 10 years together. And we wanted you guys just to overhear a conversation of really a team that's kind of stuck through it, kind of through thick and thin, through the ups and downs. And, we've told you guys some really kind of personal stories, whether that be stories of death in our organization to, stories of people potentially walking away from the organization to stories of, whether or not the organization was going to make it because there was a shift in the market. So we just wanted to come in and be really raw and honest with you guys and say, hey, this is our story. And as you build teams, we hope that what we've learned together over the last 10 years, there are some things that you can take back and glean from and implement into your own organization. And again, the 3 points that we wanted to drive home today was, number one, make sure that you're customizing the roles for every person in your organization. Don't just stick somebody in a seat. You might, as we use Grace as an example, have to move them to 4 to 5 different seats on the bus. But it doesn't matter as long as you finally get them in that perfect seat in which they are fulfilled and they are obviously working in their utmost strength and talent, in their, as we would say, their genius zone, their unique ability. Number two, having a deep understanding of the quirkiness of everyone in your organization and when it's time to work with them and how they're best and whether they're the one that simplifies, whether they're the one that listens, whether the one that's more of the rational voice. You have to know that about every person on the team, because I believe that in different situations, different people in the organization need to pick up the leadership reins. And it's not always me. Sometimes I'm not the one that's meant to lead out of this situation. There might be someone that's more equipped than myself to be able to do that. And then lastly, just a deep belief in the fact that if you trust your people and you have great people, you don't need to manage them. If anything, you probably need to grant them more freedom than you ever thought about giving them. But what I have found is that the more freedom that you give them, the harder they're actually going to work, because they know that they get to show up, not because they're being demanded to show up, but because it's something that they know they have the freedom to show up for. And that's a big, big shift in the overall intrinsic internal drive that we have. So we hope that you enjoyed this 3-part series with us. Again, this is us just hanging out, talking about how we've done what we've done. And I'll just say it publicly. I don't know what in the world I would do without my team. At this point in my life, I don't have kids, so I don't have a traditional family. So for me, my work family is my family, probably above all. And I probably spend more time thinking about them and talking to them than anyone else that I have in my life. But that is the joy I think that you can get to once you build a team. And again, I know for a lot of you listening, building a team is not fun. There are times in which it was extremely difficult. I've had times in which I've had the wrong team. I've had times in which I've had 2 or 3 team members walk out on me simply because I was not yet the leader that I was supposed to be within the organization. So in no way was it an easy path to get to where we are. But you know how it is. You put the time, you put the energy in. There's always great value on the other side if you stick with it. So, and as always, if we can help you out on the radio side, we would love, love, love to do that. Myself and the rest of the team would love to support you in that process of getting it set up. Because at this point, we're pretty biased on the fact that having inbound quality calls via radio is one of the best marketing channels that's out there. So as always, if you're interested in and you want to check it out, you can go to wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Again, that's wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Book a call and see if your market's open. So Krista, Sierra, Grace, Scarlett, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Thank you guys for being willing to be vulnerable and just kind of expose a little bit about our family to the rest of the Wholesaling Inc. tribe and family, so they could kind of get a glimpse of what it looks like to work with the same team for a long period of time. And to the rest of you guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, we will catch you soon when we add more value. Talk to you later.